Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily for November 4th, 2024. Coming up, Joel Embiid has beef in the locker room. Drake is on his worst behavior in Toronto. And we make our picks for next week. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Es. Good morning, Zena. Welcome back. Man, we had a crazy weekend. It feels like there's so much stuff happening every single night in the NBA. Right. And there's even stuff happening with guys who aren't playing. Joel Embiid has gotten into an altercation with a Philadelphia columnist who wrote what I can only describe as a disrespectful piece about Joel not playing. I'm not going to give this guy any more attention than he needs, but there was a scuffle in the locker room. Joel Embiid confronted this columnist and, according to reports from the locker room, shoved him. This is a big deal. Players shouldn't shove media people, and maybe media people shouldn't, make personal attacks on players who are injured or have degenerative conditions in their knees. Zena, you're in locker rooms just about every week, talking to players. You ever seen anything like what we're hearing coming out of that locker room?
No. And rightfully so, because I don't think writers usually say things that cross the line in the way that this one particularly did. I mean, it had nothing to do with the point that was trying to be portrayed, which is this player should be playing, etc. Feel how you want to feel, but I have no idea how someone's child and late brother has anything to do with that topic.
It's an old school sort of throwback mentality, and equating fatherhood to playing basketball is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. It's childish. And again, we all just know better at this point.
It's antiquated. That's what it is. It's just this ancient way of thinking. And it's so ridiculous that this gets brought up. And I think the thing that the issue that I take with this in general is how we got to this point, right? Yeah. The article got taken down because it received a lot of criticism. Obviously Joel Embiid himself a couple of days ago mentioned that specific article in his media press conference. And so for the Sixers or the NBA to not step in at that point, to me, that's what was surprising. And so I'm more curious about what will happen long term with, different situations like this, because this isn't the first situation where a reporter writes something, very, very wrong, and it probably won't be the last. So what's the way the NBA sort of corrects this, right?
Well, I don't know that the NBA can do anything about what people are going to write or what people are going to say. And I don't know that this guy shouldn't get locker room access because we don't like what he has to say or anything like that.
Totally.
But for me, I'm looking at the short term sort of consequences for Joel Embiid. He's likely looking at a suspension for this, and rightfully so. He was out of. But someone along the way, everyone failed. And I don't know where we can point fingers. Maybe we start at the newspaper, we start at the editor, we start at the writer. But that being said, I don't blame Joel Embiid for being upset. And I'm not saying he should have done what he did, but I understand completely.
There's a difference between protocol in the professional workspace and what happens when you FAFO, if you're way too online. You know what that means.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's exactly what happened. And what's so ironic about this, and this has nothing to do with it, but it's similar. How many people had grievances with this whole fatherhood storyline with LeBron and Bronny, right? And just bringing that up in general and wanting to celebrate that, but people being like, no, we don't want to talk about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then people realizing no, it's actually way out of line to bring up his fatherhood bring up Joel Embiid's fatherhood in relation to his basketball times. Which way do we want it, folks?
I agree. Look, the lines have been blurred here because, so much of what we follow about players is off the court. It's personal. I mean, Jason Tatum and his son Deuce, we know these guys, or at least we feel like we know them. And it's almost, we're too familiar. And I think that's wrong. Point. This is why I try to stick between the lines when I talk about these guys. When I talk about them, I talk about them as basketball players. Human beings, I just want them to be happy, have a healthy, happy life. Like Joel Embiid, clearly pretty good dad, spends a lot of time with his son. That's all I care as far as fatherhood goes. I hope to see him on the court at some point, but that has nothing to do with what's happening inside his house.
Well, access is a huge part of that. And social media, like the documentaries, everything that we have now just makes us 2 feet away from all of these athletes. So it creates a bit of a stan culture also, where, you know, one, you idolize these athletes to a certain point where you create these ridiculous expectations for them. But at the same time, you look at them as these deities. And so anything that goes wrong, you're now wondering, okay, how can I get mad at this athlete for this specific thing? By the way, Joe Mazzulla wanted fighting, not like this, though.
Yeah, we don't want any of this. The other big thing from the weekend, guys, because we care about basketball here on this show, we've still got 2 undefeated teams, and they're kind of rolling. The Cavs are 7-0. They got a big win over the Bucks over the weekend. You called this in the preseason. You said that the Cavs are my team to watch. I think they could come out of the East if everything breaks right. Well, right now, man, they look really good.
I'm glad I put that on paper, man. I'm glad I put, well,
you
on
put it
vocals,
on video.
I guess.
Yeah.
I put it on video, yeah. Look, the Cavs have been awesome. Last night's game, I thought, was a very, very clear sign of the Bucks really, really struggling on the defensive end to contain the dribble penetration of a guy like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Both of those guys have been awesome to start the year, shooting 40% from behind the arc. The Cavs in general are shooting the lights out to start the year. They're the 4th best defensive team, 2nd best offensive team. And I know there's a lot of noise in those numbers because it's early, but the fact that they're doing so well offensively, I wanted to highlight a article from Fred Katz, our own Fred Katz, who wrote about Evan Mobley and basically the pitch from Kenny Atkinson to say, I will fix this situation. And that's how he got the Cavaliers head coaching job. He's empowering Evan Mobley to bring the ball up in transition, be this ball handler. Zena, I know you're big on bigs, so I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But in general, I just feel like there's so much more we're seeing from Mobley, who is finishing better at the rim, you know, shooting the ball well now too, and just being like a great ball handler at times. It's awesome.
You know, they've got this great interior size and defense, and then Zena, they've got Garland and Mitchell as guards. And when you've got these guys, I mean, Donovan Mitchell hit a huge shot against the Bucks, and it's just they kind of have all these pieces, right, Zena?
Absolutely. And we've talked about this. Like when you talk about a playoff team build, you want a strong backcourt, typically a 2-headed snake, decision makers, playmakers, and shot creators. In the case that, you know, things go left, they need somebody to clean things up. They've got that in Mitchell and Garland. Then you want some people coming off the bench. They've got that in Karis LeVert. And more than anything, you want a deep bench. You saw Sam Merrill come in, hit 5 of 9 threes against the Bucks. He's been doing that. You've got, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley playing well against each other on the interior as well. It's a well-built team to sustain any sort of attack from any sort of team. I particularly was looking at the extra possessions that their interior players provide them, whether it's contested shots, whether it's offensive boards, whether it's just loose balls recovered. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley continue to find themselves in the top 20, in the top 10 of players in the NBA in terms of providing those extra possessions. So all of that put together gets you a really nasty basketball team. And that's what the Cavs look like right now.
And they're crushing a little bit right now because they've been together so long. I just think the chemistry is just something that you can't beat. And especially with a new coach that's working out for them. Oklahoma City now 6-0. They pick up back-to-back wins Friday and Saturday night. This is sort of what we expected, but when Hartenstein got hurt, we thought, maybe early on they might struggle with some depth issues, but man, they're just blowing teams out.
It's truly unfair that you have a backcourt of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe, and then off of the bench, it's like, here you go, Alex Caruso, Cason Wallace, right? Try to score a basket on them.
We're going to just take some starters for other teams off of the bench for us.
Yeah. And so they've run away with the number 1 defense in the league so far this year. That's why they're undefeated. And I think it creates this margin for them to kind of walk through games a little bit. Like they were down 13 against the Clippers on Saturday. They ended up coming out and blowing them out in the second half. It wasn't even close. They have the 2nd best net rating and first, there's tons of numbers that indicate that this is the best team in the league right now. I just think they even have more room because they haven't looked that great offensively. They haven't shot the ball that well either. And this was the best shooting team in the league last year. So there's so much more room on top of how dominant they've already been.
Yeah, I think some of that shooting. Well, right. Yes. But some of that shooting.
They are the best team at that.
some of that shooting, I think, is because of the increase in 3-point volume, especially from Shea. I mean, he's just getting up so many threes right now. Zena, I want to swing it to you on this because Chet Holmgren last week, like we saw him go head to head with Wemby and just completely own that matchup. But he has been, I think he's looking at an all-star this year.
I agree. And it's because of the development. You've seen it across their roster, really. This is what they've been known for, from their G League to their top players. Even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander made a comment about being traded away from the Clippers to OKC and saying, I worked on my development and I think I've won out that trade. But Chet Holmgren has been surreal, especially now being able to come off of screens, being able to take his defender on his own. And he's just bigger this year, and not necessarily physically. I'm not going to say he looks bigger physically, but he is a bigger presence in the way that he attacks the basket and
more
also
imposing,
paint protects. More imposing. That's a perfect word for it. Way more imposing this year. And you love to see that swagger increase from a year to year, and they're rolling with it.
Yeah, he just doesn't disappear. Ever.
Right,
like you feel his effect on the game, and this is
with that.
And it's tricky because like we're not used to seeing young bigs be this good. Like, and think about how good he was as a rookie, and now I mean technically, he's in year 3, but still, I mean it's amazing the outsized effect I feel from Chet this year versus like end of last year. He's taking a leap. I'm ready to call it right now. That guy's taking a leap, and Oklahoma City. Man, they look good. Coming up after the break, we'll talk about the game of the year so far. The Wolves were built to beat the Nuggets, and I mean, they really looked good against them right here with the new version of themselves. No Karl Anthony Towns, obviously. They've got some defensive issues that we've talked about throughout the season so far. But that game Friday night, I mean, they look like the better team.
Yeah, absolutely. And they lost it there in the fourth quarter for a little bit. Anthony Edwards actually mentioned that post game. He said that we, take our foot off the gas once we get up, and build up a lead. That's an issue that they're developing. Actually, that was an issue last year too, where they would lose a bunch of leads and figure out how they were supposed to fight through that. Just like young team tendencies, especially with a guy like Edwards leading the charge. But I'm really interested with the 3-point shooting of Anthony Edwards. You know what he said post game. I'm not going to say it word for word here, but we all know what he said after the game about, people questioning the fact that he's shooting 13 threes a game. I actually think that his 3-point shooting has opened up the rest of his game. He had a floater in the clutch in that game that really was just because they were running him off of the line and he was allowed to attack the closeout, finish. And I think that's the type of stuff that you want to see Anthony Edwards work out a little bit more. It's just him developing, the Wolves figuring things out offensively. And like you said, they're a really tough matchup for the Nuggets.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the Nuggets and their lack of depth is a huge concern. And especially when they're playing a team that's going to get Anthony Edwards and his 3-point volume has really raised the team's 3-point volume. And you look at the Nuggets, Zena, look, they only got up 32 threes in the game. And this has been a theme for us this season. They've lacked the shooting. Right. They've lacked the scoring off the bench. Russell Westbrook comes off the bench in this game and only gets them 5 points. And when you look at the plus minus, and again, single game plus minus can tell you a story of what happens, Zena. They're still +6 in 40 Jokic minutes. It's those 8 minutes that he's off the court that the game falls apart.
I think what's being underrated here in this game, as fun as it was to watch, it was really a heroic effort out of Denver. Aaron Gordon had his best game in the last 4 years, not this season. This was his highest scoring game in several years. Michael Porter Jr., best performance this season so far.
He's been awful.
Totally.
He's not been great. And this is what they needed in order to be in this game with the Timberwolves. That's an indictment on just how tough the Wolves are, but also just how tough it's been for the Nuggets trying to play with this bench. They have not been able to find any sort of reliable source of additional offense, additional pace outside of Jokic. And this game really showed me, okay, it's going to take everything for the Nuggets to show up in the West this year.
Yeah, and Jamal Murray had to leave this game with a concussion, so he only plays 22 minutes. I mean, that's, it's getting to be a mash unit already over there.
It's going to take Jokic predicting the other team's plays for 60 possessions in a row in order for them to win.
I wonder if the NBA has launched that investigation.
Oh, that was a very funny joke that Rudy made. Jokic knows all their plays, but the truth is everybody kind of runs the same thing. So they know all their plays. Up in Toronto, and I need you to walk me through this because you're like my Canadian translator, my Toronto guy. They retired Vince Carter's jersey in Toronto. And now as a guy in his mid 40s, I'm confused by this because I remember watching him quit on the team. Yeah. So what happened there? How did they reconcile that relationship?
Well, okay, for what it's worth, it took 20 years to reconcile that relationship. Like, it was not an easy process. There were 10 years of booing and VC suck chants that happened. And then in 2014, when they had their 25th anniversary, they did a little video for him while he was playing for the Grizzlies. He got really emotional. He cried. There's actually a clip of the crowd booing at first, and then the boos turn into cheers. And I actually thought that was the moment where things kind of swung the other direction. And it was just like, hey, you know what? Like, he was actually really cool when we watched him. Obviously, time heals all wounds, as you say. And
marketing doesn't hurt.
Marketing doesn't hurt either.
They were just saying
purple
doesn't hurt, right? Yeah. Zena, I need you to tell me, who is Drake and what is his problem with DeMar DeRozan?
Now, you can't erase Drake like that, okay? We understand that he's been having some conflicts in the rap world. But
taking L's.
He's been taking some L's, but he's absolutely still done a lot within the space. Now, another thing he's done a lot is hitched himself onto sports teams, whether it's Kentucky men's basketball, whether it's, the Toronto Raptors. You've seen him on sidelines cheering on his favorite teams. Sometimes the cheer goes a little too far and he gets a little bit too deep into his feelings about it. And we saw Drake after the Sacramento Kings came to Toronto. DeMar DeRozan, who was famously on stage with rap rival of Drake, Kendrick Lamar, for the Pop Out concert in LA, doing his thing. Okay. Yep. Great dance moves by DeMar DeRozan.
And in the music video, right?
And in the music video. That's right. And in the music video. Clearly hurt some feelings for Drake, right? They were friends, I believe. And so he's walking away on the court, and Drake had some choice words for him. Some vile words I won't repeat here, but either way, it was as he was walking away. DeMar DeRozan was asked about this in the post-game press conference. And he seemed real chill about it. He was like, Drake has a long way to climb and kind of let it be. But then he came back on his Instagram story. This is DeMar DeRozan, and quoted a really good line out of Friday about how, when Debo's not in the room, people have things to say, right? When he's walking away, people have things to say. You could definitely go check it out. I don't know if it'll be on his story still, but point is, Drake, DeMar have a little bit of beef. I think it was incredibly corny for Drake to say something as DeMar's walking away.
Yeah.
But I ain't gonna lie. I kind of think it's corny that DeMar DeRozan came back on his Instagram story in the way that Drake would typically.
Yeah, I don't know. One guy is there to watch another guy do the thing that he does for a living. And I
did
think
it well.
If you're sitting there watching somebody else do their job, you should keep your mouth shut. Coming up after the break, we're going to look ahead at next week and make some picks. After 1 week of picks, S and I are 3-0 and Zena's 2-1. So I feel like we could just end this. We win. We're tied for first. S. Zena loses. Well, looking ahead to the week, guys, I've got my picks already. I'm going to take the Spurs over the Clippers on Monday. I just think Victor Wembanyama is on a roll right now. That 5x5 last week. The Clippers kind of scuffling a little bit. I've got the Grizzlies over the Lakers on Wednesday. I love the Grizzlies' depth right now, and they're doing some interesting stuff on the court. Ja is unstoppable. And then I've got the Pistons over the Hornets on Wednesday. The Pistons are due. Finally, S. They're gonna do this thing. Zena, who you got?
I got Mavs over Pacers. We've seen the Pacers kind of lose some of their inside presence, and the Mavs complete opposite on that end. Inside presence big. Grizzlies over Lakers. Same with you. Like their depth, but most importantly, love their pace. And I don't think the Lakers defense can handle that. And then, oh my God, I just realized I chose Mavs twice, but Mavs over Suns. I think again, their size inside and just their ability to shoot outside, I don't think the Phoenix Suns can match up against it.
S, what about you? Who are you looking at?
I like
this week?
it. Good week for the Mavs. I got the Kings over the Heat. They had a really bad loss against the Raptors in overtime. They need to bounce back in a major way. I think they can do that against Miami on Monday. I'm going Lakers over Grizz, not Grizz over Lakers, just to go against Dave in this situation for fun, to be honest with you. And then Bucks over Knicks on Thursday. I think Milwaukee's size, they are also hungry for getting a win and getting back into the win column. Going Bucks over Knicks Thursday.
Those are our picks of the week, brought to you by BetMGM. And S is making a play for first place. I see what he's doing right there.
Yes.
That's going to do it for today's show, folks. Stick with us this week. We're going to be recapping all the games. Make sure you go out and vote on Tuesday. Please shoot us your emails at NBADaily@theathletic.com. For Es Baraheni and Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.